The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Now Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, saying, "The scribes and the Pharisees have taken their seat on the chair of Moses. Therefore do and observe all the things whatever they tell you, but do not follow their example. For they preach, but they do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to carry, and they lay them on people's shoulders, but they will not lift a finger to move them. Well, all their works are performed to be seen. They widen their phylacteries, they lengthen their tassels, they love the places of honor at banquets and synagogues. They like to be greeted in the marketplace and hear the salutation, 'Rabbi.' As for you, do not call anybody Rabbi. You have but one teacher. You are all sisters and brothers to each other. You are to call no one on earth your father. You have only one Father, your Father in heaven. And don't be called master, because you have but one master, the Christ. The greatest among you must be your servant. Whoever exalts themselves will be humbled. Whoever humbles themselves will be exalted." The Gospel of the Lord. Amen. Please be seated. What you hear in whispers, shout. What you see dimly, shed light upon it. Today we've got Malachi shouting, Jesus shedding light. In our holy work, because we are the crowds and we are the disciples, is to really hear what they are trying to say, because they are ranting and raving. They are on a rant because they are really disgusted. Malachi with the priests who have used the people for themselves, who have used the flock, and he says, you will be cursed. And the sad thing is, not only do the priests get cursed, but the people too. Jesus is talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, and he's trying to say, they are the legitimate teachers, but they don't walk the walk. They may talk pretty, and you might have to listen to what they're saying, but don't you dare follow their example. What they are both saying, and they are preaching to people in power, is to beware. Beware of power. Beware of power, legitimate and illegitimate power. Because as Lord Ashton so famously said, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so they are trying to awaken us, to wake up, because we're asleep. We don't really see, we don't really hear, we don't really follow. We just do whatever the narrative is. We are absolutely mindless. And I think real power, people who are caught in the power game, and I'm speaking to priests, and I'm speaking to people who have legitimate authority over someone else, and sometimes illegitimate authority over someone else. This is their homily. This is for you. The rest, you simple ones, you don't have to listen. Everybody listen. Why? Because we are on the breaking point. Today we have some prophets among us, and the prophets are saying, enough, no more. We're disgusted, we're fed up. Don't you dare try to use your power over me to abuse me, to harass me. And in the secular world, we even have a name for it. We call it the Weinstein effect. And the Weinstein effect says something like this. You think you have the power because you hold my job and you hold my life, and in your little lizard brain, you think that you can do whatever you want to because you are the one in control. Well, no, you can't. And our prophetesses, the women, have now come out and said, me too. Me too. I'm in the same boat too. And we will have it no more. I really believe that culturally we're at a tipping point. And what's happening? We are being raised to consciousness. We're waking up. We are mindful of the mindless power plays that have been played upon us forever, for eons. Now I want to say something. Isn't it amazing when you see who it is who is being accused? They're not little low-level people. They are heads of corporations. They are famous stars. They are presidents. Why? This is interesting. And I learned this about 3 or 4 years ago, and it really makes perfect sense. There is a physical relationship. The higher you go in status, the more power you have. For the males of the species, the higher your testosterone goes. Isn't that interesting? And therefore, you do stupid things. You cross lines because I'm famous and I can get away with it. And they're saying, no, you can't. No, you can't. Why is this happening? I'll tell you why it's happening today, because it's happened before. Where did it happen before? Right here. Right here. In the clergy. The first abuse scandal wasn't a secular abuse scandal. The first abuse scandal was a clergy abuse scandal. When we who have a fiduciary responsibility to those who are not under us, but are equal to us, but we saw ourselves as special. We saw ourselves, we said, you are set aside. You are special. Oh, the lay people are okay, but no, 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 no. You've got the power. Power corrupts, and the power was abused, and terribly abused. Let's face it. We like our titles. We like our privileges. We like the first place in the marketplace. Although I must say, clergy privileges are pretty much coming to an end. I think the last clergy privilege is cutting in line at a wake, but that's it. You know. Excuse me, I gotta get out of here. It looks dead to me. Okay. But we love them, and we fed off them. We fed off them for years and years and years and years and years. Until finally somebody said, enough. Now, I'm going to tell you, clerical abuse of people didn't begin in 1980. It began thousands of years before. But it was mindless. We didn't look. We covered it up. Oh, Father would never do something like that. Now, what's so sad is that optimo, corruptio optimo est pessimo. The corruption of the best is the worst. You put someone up on a pedestal, and they fall from the pedestal, it's the worst. I used to tease, I said, you know, we put the priest up on a pedestal so you get a better aim. Huh? You know? But that's not true. No, we put up a priest on the pedestal because, we want to look up to them. Well, when you fall, you really fall. And not only do you fall, but everybody falls around you. This church is not packed today. When I was here, you had standing room only every Sunday. Where are the rest? I'll tell you where the rest are. The rest are where they are in Ireland. I was in Ireland in September. What a Catholic country. In 15, 20 years ago, 90% of the Irish went to church. When I was there in September, less than 10% go to church every Sunday. What happened? They bought into the lie. They became arrogant. We became arrogant. We sinned against our people. And the people have to say, enough. No more. We will not put up with that. You know, that shadow of the clergy abuse scandal has been over my head basically almost all of my priesthood. When I'm walking down the street, if people don't know who I am, and I see a group of little children walking towards me, I'm going to the other side of the street. And I'm going to the other side of the street because I don't want them to be afraid of the stranger danger. And stranger danger really is real. But I've got that sense that I've got to be on the other side. Now if that's the sin, what's the cure? What's the cure for arrogance, for blindness, for mindlessness? Not absent-minded, no, just no mind at all, for following your instincts. Well, the cure for arrogance is easy. It's humility. It's humility. And the last sentence that Jesus says in the gospel today, the Lord resists the proud, but the humble He brings in. And until we as clergy and you as leaders, powerful people, embrace humility, it's not going to happen. Now, how do you get humility? It is so easy. You pray for it. And I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. I promised you, you pray for humility. And there are two things you pray for that will be answered immediately. One is patience, the other is humility. You pray for patience, and I promise you, before the day is out, and of course my prayer for patience is, oh Lord, I want patience and I want it now. You know? Right? That's my prayer. But I promise, you pray for patience, and before the day is out, God is going to send someone to drive you right up the wall. Promise you. And you go, what are you doing? He says, I'm answering your prayer. Practice, practice, practice. You pray for humility, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. I prayed for it before the 7:30 Mass. I got it right after the 7:30 Mass this morning. You're going to get it. The other thing is, you look for models. I think until we see humility incarnated, we don't really get it. And when you see especially a humble person at the top, the problem with most of the people that we have at the top are not humble. They're incredibly arrogant because they've got the power. But when you find someone at the very top, like Francis, watch him. Watch what he does. Watch how he works. You know, Francis, on the day that he was named Pope, was vesting, and he put his white soutane on, he put his white cassock on. And as he was about to go outside, his assistant came with an ermine cope and was about to put the cope around him. And he says, I don't want that. And the assistant says, well, what do I do with it? He says, you wear it. Come on with me. And he walked out as a simple man. Do you know why? He is. He puts his pants on one leg at a time the same way all of us do. But he knows it. He wears the shoes of the fishermen, but his shoes were little old shoes that were falling apart. And when he walked out to the people, the first thing he said was, I don't have the blessing for you. As a matter of fact, I can't do a thing without your blessing. And so he had the people bless him before he blessed them. What's that? That's the flow of grace. That's the flow of love. That's the flow of healing power. Look for it. You're going to find, the Jimmy Carters of the world. There are models. Look for them. Of real, true humility, because humility is truth. We have to speak truth to power, but when we see it in power, we need to respect it. Now, the hard part. Call no one rabbi. You got one rabbi, one teacher. And then, oh boy, call no one on earth your father. That's out of the mouth of Jesus. Those are pretty serious words. What does everybody call me? I really wrestled with this when I was a young priest. Of course, I was ordained in the early 70s when everybody was kind of groovy and cool. Yeah, just call me Tone, I'm cool. But I still wrestled with it. And I finally come to terms with it. I finally been comfortable with it, especially these last years. because I want to take it the same way that St. Paul took it. You know, Paul today says, you know, I've nursed you like a mother. I've embraced you. I've loved you. And then he goes on to say, and I've fathered you. He's been a father to them. I have no problem being a father to your faith, being a conduit for your faith, showing you the Lord that I know. That's a gift. And I was blown away. On All Saints' Day, I celebrated Mass at St. Michael's. After St. Michael's, a young man came up to me, threw his arms around me, and he hugged me. And I said, "What's that for?" He said, 15 years ago, I walked into your confessional. Well, that was a confessional here at St. Isidore. I walked out of that confessional a free man. I will never forget that. Now, if I have fathered that faith, I'll take it. You want to call me father for that? That's okay. But it's still a problem. But the problem was solved because when I was a young priest, when I was wrestling with it, I did pray, help me, Lord, with this whole father thing, what I should be called. And it was solved immediately. That afternoon, one of my seminarian students, I was teaching at the high school seminary at the time, had a big smile on his face. He said, "Father, I now know who you are. I know who you are." I says, "Who am I?" He says, "You're Father Anthony R. Taschetta." I says, "Yeah." He says that if you take the initials of the name, you got A-R-T. I says, "Yeah." He says, "You're God's work of art." I says, "Thank you very much." He says that if you take the title before it, I said, "Thank you very much." You know, I was a very young man when that happened, a very young priest. And now I'm just an old Let us stand to profess our faith.